Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the patch 6.25 patch notes. It is currently 2 a.m. on the dot. I'm live on Twitch waiting for the patch to go live because I will be doing variant prog into Criterion Savage. Of course, Savage being the main prog that I'm looking at today, but I am ready and raring to go. But I got to do a patch note video, as is tradition. So let's get to it. Patch 6.25 releasing today, October 18th, 2022. And as we scroll down, let's take a look at the contents. First of all, we have the Somehow Further Hildibrand Adventures, starting with the quest Lunar Conspiracy over in Rads at Hand, followed by the Imperfect Gentleman. One or two quests is standard for those of you people who don't look forward to doing Hildibrand much, especially given that you're going to have something else to contend with immediately after. The Manderville weapons will be the very next quest, and that will be for our relics for the expansion. Zodiac, Anima, Eureka, Bozja, and now Manderville. Godbert and Geralt team up to make what I'd have to assume are the most excellent weapons that a gentleman could possibly wield. You will need to complete the Imperfect Gentleman before you can do Make It a Manderville, and then you'll have a follow-up quest after you do Make It a Manderville in order to... It's probably just a follow-up quest. Make It a Manderville is probably the weapon, and the follow-up quest is probably just a quest. It's either the quest that like repeats itself to do the various steps, or it's just another story quest that comes after that. Now, at this point, by the way, we don't know this for certain, but Hildibrand and the Manderville weapon should be splitting after this. It's possible they make us do every patch's Hildibrand before we continue our Manderville weapon, but it seems more likely that they're going to be splitting here, and that they might only tangentially meet at some point later. That would be in line with what they've done in the past with relics that break off of other quest series, you know? Variant dungeon is going to be unlocked from Shallow Moor in Old Charlian. We will need Endwalker done, and also spoken with the NPC Osman. Who is that NPC? I don't remember off the top of my head. Either way, just a quick visit to them, and then Shallow Moor will give us the quest we need. Also, there will be a follow-up quest after a Key to the Past, a question mark quest, and that will have also met certain requirements within the Sildine subterrane. This might be for completing all 12 of the variant endings, or maybe a specific ending, the canon ending, whatever it is they plan on doing. Omicron tribal quests, we've heard and seen plenty about these, and like all tribal quests, they will have a quest sync, meaning that you do not need to be max level to do them. You need to be at least level 80 on your gatherers in order to do them, and they will sync to whatever level your gatherer is between 80 and 90, so you can use them as a proper leveling method. We will be going over to Jamming Way in order to get this quest over in Ultima Thule, and you must first complete the quest where no Loperit has gone before. I think, and then it's called a cafe at the end of the universe. I think, what quest is that? I think that's just getting to Thule, where no Loperit has gone before. Because you need the Sigma Dreamscape. Maybe that is the Sigma Dreamscape quest. It's been so long since I've done the quest for that. Maybe that is that one. But either way, that's the prerequisite. And then these are just follow-up quests. You know, as you rank up in your reputation, you'll be able to do subsequent quests that continue the story. They will be daily locked, of course, 3 quests a day, part of the 12 quest limit. They'll get currency every single day, which you can use on mounts, minions, materia, whatever it is you want to use it on. And as it says right here, that's what the vendors are. The vendors for Omicron will be unlocked after completing the quest, the cafe at the end of the universe. And here is where that is in Ultima Thule, in case you needed some references. The Sildine Subterrane will be entering New Game Plus after you complete it the first time. So if you miss something or you're skipping it like I am for the variant dungeons, you will have it available in New Game Plus, which I kind of appreciate. Furnishing design contest winners have been added to the game, so for those of you looking for some more housing-related interior and exterior stuff, be sure to give these a peek and see if they will match what you're doing. New furnishings in general have been added, as you can see here, almost a workshop-esque situation we have going on here. And then new orchestrion roles, probably the Criterion orchestrion role. We have heard snippets of the music thanks to the live letter for both Variant and Criterion. Plus, we expect the Omicrons will have their own song, much like the Arcosadara did, and I hope it's as jamming as the Arcosadara quest was as well. Gold Saucer has new triple triad cards and new opponents. Not much of a surprise. New Beast Tribe quests or tribal dailies do tend to come with new opponents, and there's other quests as well that might give us new opponents. Log message will now be displayed when trying to leave the island sanctuary while using the duty finder. Okay. New emotes have been added. This is the /wow emote. I've already read the patch notes ahead of this, so I already know that. And people are going to enjoy looking like Graha whenever he looks at us. Echo and As Fidelis has been increased. If you're still doing the previous tier for any sort of glam or whatever reason, it's up to 15% now. They are incorporating the 7th Circle arena changes, so the appearance of the arena will be changed after clearing the fight. This is because the most popular markers for the Savage encounter actually were only initially achieved by using a third-party program. They unfortunately spread like wildfire, and it was too much. It became too standard, so they decided, not going to punish anyone, but we'll change the arena so people can make new markers after they beat the fight. That's what this is being added to do, so be sure to go ahead and do that. Variant Dungeon Sildine Subterrane has been added. We did a whole video on these, so we don't need to go too deep into it. Dynamically scaling between 1 to 4 party size, so you can enter alone, you can enter with a friend, whatever you want. Minimum item level of 575 with an item level sync of 635, and the only thing is you have to, of course, speak to Osmond like we mentioned before. It'll have its own duty queue, the VNC Dungeon Finder found under duty in the main menu, and you'll have, of course, the variant actions, you'll have some tombstone rewards, and it is a pick your own adventure dungeon. So you'll be picking different paths and you'll get different lore entries and stuff depending on how you venture through the dungeon. You can enter via matchmaking or again enter solo. This is how you would do that. Make sure the box enable party matching is unchecked and you can register the duty to enter alone. Or you can just enter via matchmaking if you prefer not to do it alone, which is perfectly okay. There are no role requirements. That's what the variant actions are there for. You can even change your jobs once you're inside. So you have tons of freedom inside of variant dungeons to make adjustments should you desire. And there's even attribute adjustments on top of the variant actions. Certain attributes will be adjusted to compensate for the disparity between certain roles, alleviating the need for dedicated tanks, DPS, or healers. In other words, just have fun with it. That's it. It's not meant to be difficult. It's just meant to be a fun little thing for you to do alone or with friends with the different endings, the different story branches, and all that stuff. So enjoy it. It explains to set the variant actions. You do it in the VNC Dungeon Finder window, just at set actions right here. And there's not too many, Rampart, Provoke, Raise, there's just some basic stuff to make sure that whatever role you are, you can cover your weaknesses. There are also items that you can get as you're going through. There will be chests to open which will give you tokens, and those tokens can be exchanged for various goods. Then we have the Criterion dungeon, another Sildine Subterrane. This is not a casual experience for Criterion. Variant is if you're a casual player who's not looking for a challenge. Criterion, according to the live letter, is more of like an extreme trial difficulty, but condensed down for 4 players. It is a minimum item level of 610, so full crafted gear would be enough to get you in, and you must have a party comprised of 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. You will need to beat the variant dungeon, and then speak with Osmond and Old Charlian in order to unlock it, and then you will queue in pretty much the same way. This is not a scaling difficulty. You will need 4 players, and among the 2 DPS, 1 must be melee and 1 must be physical ranged or magical ranged. Now, there will be a party composition bonus. Basically, if you have any jobs that are generally weaker because they offer more utility, they're going to be bumping up your stats or giving you a bonus to your damage depending on that. I think they're trying to make sure there's no discrepancy between the ranged physical role and the amount of utility they bring versus the more selfish jobs, making sure people don't just immediately rush to, let's say, Black Mage or Summoner or something like that. So if you are using a job that's generally considered weaker in its role, your party will be given some damage to compensate. So enjoy. Curious to see if that ends up kind of alleviating any balance issues that people may actually have. The bonus system is intended to compensate for the proportional decrease in utility of such actions as party size decreases. So this is a more in-depth look at it. Proportional decrease in utility as the party size decreases, meaning you only have 4 people. You don't have 8 people. They're just going to give you some stuff to compensate. Almost makes it sound like it's scaled to 8 people, but instead they just kind of increase the strength of the 4. But we'll have to see how it is once we actually get in. There are no variant actions other than Variant Raise 2 in Criterion, and Variant Raise 2 can only be used once per party member, though you will occasionally be given charges replenished. Or just don't die. Smile. If you die, you will only be able to be resurrected by Variant Raise 2, and if everyone dies, you'll be sent back to the entrance, but the dungeon itself won't reset. It's like a standard dungeon, And then, of course, there will be tokens that you can use to exchange for various items. And then we have another Syldian Subterrane, Savage. It's a Savage version of the normal mode Criterion, and this is meant to be, well, Savage difficulty. Fair to say. There's no item level requirement because you need a fully preformed party to enter, and in 14, you can't enforce a minimum item level when the party is fully pre-made. So they just don't even bother putting it right here. We'll have an item level sync of 635, and you'll have 120 minutes to complete the dungeon, as is standard of a final tier encounter in traditional Savage. Also, speak with Osman after you beat the normal mode Criterion in order to unlock Savage mode Criterion, and then it's queued up for the same way. Now, the restrictions are at a maximum on this one, but they also just cover the party composition bonus here. It's the same type of bonus, and they even say it's even exactly the same as in the other one. So it's not going to be any stronger, any weaker, none of that. There are no variant actions, no variant raise. You can't raise anyone. If somebody dies, they're done. They are done until the entire party wipes. And if your entire party wipes, then the entire dungeon respawns from the start. On top of that, from the very first time you engage enemies in the dungeon, so the very first trash pull that you make, a timer starts ticking, similar to an enrage in a Savage or Extreme encounter. And if you take too long, you will obtain the Sewer Dweller effect, which will increase the damage all the enemies do and decrease their damage taken. Essentially, it's an enrage. So your enrage begins from the second you pull the first monster. So you don't want to dawdle around AFK mid-dungeon, anything like that. One pull is one entire dungeon. You will also be incapacitated if you log out or disconnect. They do this in content like this. They did it in DRS also. It's just to make sure that people don't use it to abuse any of the dungeon mechanics. So it's like that here too. And again, item exchange, tokens for various goods. Curious to see what those various goods end up being. They also did change so moving on, going to PvP, it was possible for players to interact with and take control of certain devices with little risk via the effect of Guardian used by Paladin. This is specifically referring to Ansal Hakar being abused by a high amount of Paladins. This was unintended. Guardian will no longer have an effect on targets interacting with an object. So Ansal Hakar, you can no longer cover cheese, all of that. It will still work for its other intended purposes in places like the Crystalline Conflict, but keep in mind, interacting with an object. So if they ever add anything that interacts with an object, just be aware in the future that's how it'll work. And also a log message will now be displayed when registration for Crystalline Conflict is canceled due to arena changes. Good, because I tend to miss that from time to time. New items, we know we have this trench coat. We knew we were getting this, and I think that's from Omicron's, because they showed this when they were talking about Omicron's, if I remember. So we got some Blues Brothers stuff going on here. New recipes, new gathering points. New items have been added to gathering points, new fishing holes, new fish, and then the name of the following fishing hole has been changed from Eligaya to Abode of the Yah over in Ultima Thule. The following adjustments have been made to the Wellspring of Regret and Abode of Yah fishing holes. The level of these known fishing holes has been reduced, and the Time-Worn Kambira skin maps can no longer be obtained from them. On top of that, we have a new mount. These are from the Omicrons, and we know there are other new mounts as well. We know of at least 2 of them between Variant and Criterion dungeons, and who knows if there will be more. We also have our lizard friend here, new minion. We have a new fashion accessory, this Cactar umbrella. And then for system changes, new achievements, new adventure plates, VNC Dungeon Finder added to duty under the main menu, new keybind menu /wow, that's the emote we saw earlier. A log message will now be displayed if you have used the world visit or data center travel systems and do not log into your home world for a prolonged period of time. It's just for free company masters, because if a free company master stays off of their data center for too long, then it will actually transfer ownership to somebody else. So definitely probably a good idea. Players who have yet to log into their homeworld since the release of 6.25 will receive this message. Players are encouraged to visit their homeworld. New trophies, new music and sound, and then a bunch of resolved issues from the previous patches, which we don't need to go over in too much depth. However, known issues, I definitely want to see if there's anything affecting Variant or Criterion dungeons. An issue where the sound effects played when entering or leaving the Variant dungeons are incorrect. An issue when the players are able to enter the Variant dungeon without meeting the item level requirements under certain conditions. Interesting. An issue after entering the Variant dungeon wherein the default position of the cursor after closing the Variant actions window is incorrect. That sounds like it get mildly annoying. An issue wherein certain graphics do not display correctly in the Variant dungeon, the Criterion dungeon, and Criterion Dungeon Savage. Certain graphics, so because they're very unspecific, I'm concerned that that's a mechanic, and I'm hoping that's not the case, because if it's a mechanic that doesn't display correctly, as the graphic, that could be a concern. Hopefully it's just something in the dungeon itself that doesn't display properly. An issue where, when selecting another Sildian Subterrane or Savage, wherein the requirements for duty complete under matching requirement do not display. Okay. Issue in viewing the VNC Dungeon Finder help window, wherein there's no text indicating that variant actions cannot be set during combat or while variant actions are on cooldown. An issue wherein viewing the VNC Dungeon Finder when the tooltip for rewards continues to display erroneously under certain conditions. That's annoying. Omicron tribal quests wherein the map opened via coordinates sent by other players does not display correctly. An issue wherein entering Elysian from another area causes the map to display incorrectly. And an issue wherein the imperfect gentleman wherein certain text is incorrect. Wonder if this is much like the NPC issue that we had during Omega, where two of the NPCs had the same name. I'm sure people will notice it and point it out pretty quickly. Anyway, that is going to be a wrap for our patch note overview going into variant Criterion and the other various systems that are being implemented in patch 6.25. If you were looking for job changes, those are not going to be until patch 6.28, which is taking place on November 1st, alongside the North American data center expansion, where they're adding the Dynamis data center and 4 new servers. In case you thought that this, because of the recent letter from the producer live, the translations were unofficial and later corrected that 6.25 would have no numerical job changes, only 6.28 would have them. That correction was posted later after the initial posting, after most people had reported on it, so it is what it is. So be on the lookout for that in just a couple of weeks. Anyway, I've got a server to wait for uptime for English on Twitch. It's early. Give me a break. I will see all of you in the game and in Criterion, and keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for all my first clears, guides, all that this week, because we're going to be busy. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until later, see ya.